On today's show, the Capitals blank the Ducks, and Ethen Frank has goals in back-to-back games.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme. I've covered the Capitals for the last 3 seasons for Locked On and various other outlets before that. I'm also the host of the weekly show called The Capitals Minutecast, available wherever you find your podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, we talk about the big win as the Capitals down the Anaheim Ducks in DC. And let's be clear here, this is not a really great Anaheim team. They do have some young talent. I think that this team could be good in years to come. And what is some of the things that we know about this team is sometimes the Capitals have a hard time playing down to a team or a team that's not as good as them. So for the Capitals not to fall into what they call a trap game, well, that was quite a victory in and of itself. A little bit later, I'll talk about line changes, as we know that Spencer Carberry is constantly tinkering with things. He's not ever pleased until this team gets a lot of success. So I think that what we saw tonight, you'll see a lot more in the future, particularly PLD on the first line and Strome on the second line. Is that what we're going to expect to see going forward? A little bit later, I'll talk about who stepped up on this team and ultimately what got the Capitals into victory lane. And then in the final segment, I'll talk about trade rumblings surrounding Yanni Gourde. But just to get it going here, what a great win for the Capitals. Their first back-to-back victories since late December, if you can believe it. And ultimately why some people looked at this team and they wondered if it is fool's gold. And one of the things that's going to be coming up on this podcast feed is squad casts, is what they like to call them. So there are going to be some Locked On NHL hosts, and one of the topics that they talked about was the Capitals and are they sustainable and who's better, Ovechkin or Gretzky. I wasn't able to attend, but definitely something to check out. I think it's going to be out later on Wednesday. But as far as the Capitals tonight, and the performance and the people questioning this team, is it fool's gold? How could everyone in the NHL be so wrong about the Capitals? All the people that knew the sport the best, that PLD, what is he going to mean? This team has really stepped up and quieted a lot of the quote unquote insiders. But a great evening for the Capitals, a 3-0 victory over the Anaheim Ducks. I ultimately don't care who they're playing as long as it ends in a victory and they pick up the points that they need. I will go ahead and call it a nice win. So they also have Ottawa on deck, a team that's also maybe not playing up to their expectations as well. So, but a great thing for the Capitals, like I say, back-to-back wins, standout performances. So who were some of the standout performances? Brandon Duhaime was a key player in the game with a goal and an assist. And it was interesting because some people, it was kind of one of those things that if you hang out in front of the net, good things will happen. And it was Chychrun up there. It was Duhaime. It was Ethen Frank that ultimately the goal ended up going to Brandon Duhaime, even though the thought was that it was a Chychrun goal. But talking about smart adjustments, and one of the things that we love about head coach Spencer Carberry is he does not just try to keep doing the same thing again and again and expecting a different result. He's going to make changes if the team does not perform. And as you should, if you are a coach that's worth your salt, then you're not going to keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result. That is one of the things that I really like about head coach Spencer Carberry. And like I referenced off the top of the show, that we saw Pierre-Luc Dubois on the first line with Alex Ovechkin and Alexei Protas. And for a lot of people, they would say, well, that's kind of how I thought the season was going to start. The Capitals went out and traded for a shiny new toy in Pierre-Luc Dubois, a guy that on paper is definitely a step up, and what we've seen in actuality is a big step up. And all things considered, there was a bit of, crossed signals, if you will, when PLD did that drop pass, and well, there was no one to pick it up. Ultimately, I think that it is a work in progress. I guess it remains to be seen. The Capitals won the game. It's a 3-0 victory. That maybe we will see something similar, if not the same thing, against Ottawa. All things considered, I like it. I think that Strome skating alongside Connor McMichael and Tom Wilson was a good fit. And you take a look at Strome. He was a guy that also, even though he's a forward, really kind of worked well defensively in this game as well. And one of the things, the secret sauce for the Capitals on that second line was PLD, Connor McMichael, and Tom Wilson. That was PLD, a great hockey mind feeding Connor McMichael or Tom Wilson. So I think that head coach Spencer Carberry's thought process therein is to kind of spread the wealth a little bit, that we know that PLD is good. We know that Dylan Strome is good. We know that this team is struggling generating opportunities 5-on-5 as of late. Why not try to jumpstart the offense? And that was evident in the game tonight as they were generating around 20 shots. So a great thing for the Capitals, and ultimately why I think that we will see more of that going in the future. Now, the reconfiguration seemed to really click, enhancing team chemistry and leading to more high-quality scoring chances. And that's what you want. And some of the things is I think the Capitals have got kind of away from the things that worked well for them to start the season. Connor McMichael found a lot of success by going for those greasy, dirty goals, setting up front. Tom Wilson kind of posting up front, screening the netminder, hoping for a rebound or a deflection. Those were all the things that worked very well for the Capitals to start the season. They lost their way a little bit, but I think they've regained that and refocused and rediscovered what got them success earlier in the season. Again, don't try to fix something if it's not broke. Capitals continue to keep doing things like you did. You saw that with the goal with Duhaime. You saw that in a lot of different other opportunities as well, is that if you kind of hang out up front, either you're going to be able to tap it in, you're going to be able to deflect it, you're going to be able to screen the goalie. Those are things that worked well for the Capitals. But talking about an offensive turnaround before the games, or this game rather, shall we say, the Capitals really struggled offensively, generating chances at 5-on-5, but they turned that around significantly against the Ducks. And you could say, and I will go ahead and say, that it had to do with the fact with the reconfigured forward lines. They managed to surpass 20 shots on goal for the first time in 3 games. Now that's encouraging. Spencer Carberry, his assistants, they got to be kind of high-fiving each other in the locker room like, yep, that worked. Now, the thing to consider, of course, like I said, is that was against a really poor Ducks team, but I think that it is definitely worth another peek against Ottawa here coming up, and perhaps against Pittsburgh, depending on the success rate with Ottawa. So talking about the highlights in this game in particular, it was quite a game for the Capitals. The bottom 6 forwards really stepped up, and defensively the team was solid, which played a huge role in the win. Of course, the bottom 6, and, I'm talking Nick Dowd, the fourth line as well, always kicking it in. So Duhaime, he was the one that got the ball rolling for the Capitals, deflecting a shot from Jacob Chychrun into the net for his 5th goal of the season. And, talking about Duhaime, he was a guy that's been in a bit of a goalless drought. You got to know that he probably felt pretty darn good that I don't care how I got the goal. The credit goes to me, and I'm off the schneid, if you will, as far as goals scored. But talking about Chychrun in general, he extended his point streak to an impressive 22 points in 24 4 games. Let's lock him up to a big term deal, kind of like Tom Wilson. And at some point, Logan Thompson, just hand them the checkbook, tell them to fill it out, and let's just get it done. I think that Chychrun, there's been defensive gaps. I get that. These players are not robots. They're humans. They're prone to making errors. But painting him with a broad brush, Chychrun has been lightning in a bottle for the Capitals' blue line and their offense. John Carlson also stepping up, made it 2-0 by capitalizing on a turnover for his 4th. So, just talking about, him kicking in the offense as well. About time we saw one go in after having 3 previous goals disallowed. That's the tough thing about John Carlson, as he has been a bit unlucky in the goal scoring department in kind of a lot of ways, looking up to the sky sometimes when these goals are overturned, like, yep, here we go again, that it's good for good old number 74 to get the credit and actually get to what they call a good goal. So good on John Carlson, stout defenseman, good offensive player. We love his game. And of course, when John Carlson is really dialed in, this team plays that much better. But my big takeaway from this game, if I'm going to take the biggest thing, and, you could go in a lot of different directions. You could go to Logan Thompson. You could go to 5-on-5 success. I'm going to go in a direction that I want to go, regardless of what direction I should go in. And that's Ethen Frank, who scored in the second period. So that is goals in back-to-back games. His first game, he put up an assist. This guy, if he can sustain it, is definitely going to be that key ingredient for the third line. Now, some people say, well, we've seen glimpses of greatness from Verona and different players. What I've seen from Ethen Frank so far, I'm loving what I'm seeing. He put up huge numbers in the American Hockey League that it only kind of stands to reason that he would in the National Hockey League. And I understand that sometimes that does not translate, but it has. And I would give him more opportunities. Spencer Carberry, do the right thing. Keep him in the lineup. Goals in back-to-back games. He's putting up points. He has done nothing to let this team down. And my feel-good story of the recent time here with the Capitals is Ethen Frank. I was pounding the drum for him that he needs his opportunity, and just exemplification of a guy making the most of his opportunities. That is what Ethen Frank has done. Feel-good story for me for the Capitals, a feel-good story for Ethen Frank that definitely has had to work to get where he is at, and just goes to show you, if you have a good work ethic and some raw talent, well, that can take you most anywhere. All right, so coming up here after the break, we'll talk about Logan Thompson, who stood up, big time. The Capitals really need Logan Thompson to play huge for the team, and he did just that. I'll discuss next. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is easy to navigate, and the variety of bets keeps every game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly, no waiting around for your winnings. Whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add some extra excitement to the playoffs, FanDuel has got you covered, and there's a lot to like. And we're heading into the playoffs, or we are in the playoffs rather, and you take a look at the victorious Commanders taking down the Bucks. So whether it is the Commanders or whoever, open up the FanDuel app, put a little bit of money on those games. All of a sudden, they got that much more exciting. So just go to FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It is your team. Every day you can find me over on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. And I want to thank all of you for making this your first listen of the day and bearing with me as my voice has taken incremental steps forward. Still not 100%. I'm really riding the gain very hard on my mixer here, but bear with me as I am making my way through this episode. Love doing it. Let's talk about LT. Let's talk about him being clutch for this team. A guy that is getting paid around $750,000 is due for quite a raise when it's all said and done. Are the Capitals going to be the team that's going to give him the raise? If they're going to do the right thing, then absolutely that is what they should do. Again, give him the checkbook, have him fill it out, say whatever it needs, fill out however you need to fill it out to be a Capital in the long term. That's what they have to do. So just a backstory, of course, if you don't listen to the show or say you are a casual Capitals fan, is that Charlie Lindgren is injured, upper body. Some people speculate it was a concussion protocol or a concussion spotter rather that noticed something that when Duhaime smashed into a Canadiens player, that player then also bumped into Charlie Lindgren. He kind of bonked his head off the goal there. So that we know the earliest he can come back is Saturday against the Pens. And that's where we're at right now. And, throughout the season, it's been a back and forth. It was Logan Thompson and Charlie Lindgren and Logan Thompson. And I think they've only deviated from that like one time that I can think of, maybe twice at the most. But now this is an interesting opportunity to get a longer look at Logan Thompson. And what do you mean? Well, just what I'm talking about. They kept alternating back and forth. What will this team look like if they, in fact, do ride the hot hand? They don't keep alternating, which at the end of the day, that's kind of nonsense, in my opinion. That's a way to start the season, but at some point, you need to really drill down and name the number one. And I think that, LT is that guy. And what we saw tonight, a shutout, his first of the season, what's not to love there? And he is proving to everyone why he is deserving of an extension and why he should be a Capitals netminder in the long term. So let's talk about Logan Thompson. He was absolutely stellar tonight, achieving a shutout and a perfect save record of 18 stops. Now, 18 stops, that's somewhat significant. How many of those were high danger? Not a lot. There were some opportunities that I thought the Ducks were going to be able to find the back of the net, but giving credit where credit's due, if I'm shooting the arrows, I'm also handing out the applause that he did, played a really great game, a shutout, and has been absolutely lights out for the team this year, posting a 19-2-3 record. Quite stunning, quite the achievement, and ultimately is, I think making it easy for Chris Patrick about who is going to be the guy that's going to get the extension. And I know the insiders, they all say, Elliot Friedman, that the Capitals are all in on Charlie and Logan. Why don't you go ahead and take a look at how much Shesterkin is making? Take a look at some of the netminders that are making the big contracts out there. My strong hunch, and I would be very surprised if they go in a different direction. I think that they only name one. They give a contract to one player. Right now, both of those guys are making under $2 million cumulatively. That they got lucky, and it was a very smart, shrewd move by former GM Brian McClellan. They are not going to come cheap. You talk about LT. Everyone's like, well, why has there been no contract talks? Oh, I bet you the Capitals would love to talk turkey with Logan Thompson, but I'm sure that his agent is like, whoa, guys. Not so fast, unless you want to pay an extremely high rate. Let's see how this whole season plays out. And, then ultimately, he wants to get the most for his client. I'm talking about his agent. So I think that if the Capitals, in fact, are all in on Logan Thompson, he'll do it, but it's not going to come cheap. And now with Charlie on injured reserve, Thompson really had to step up as the starting goalie, and he delivered in a big way. So who's the guy? Again, if you are a somewhat casual Capitals fan, who's the backup? It is Hunter Shepard right now. And, a really great netminder in his own right. I think that, a guy that's deserving of an NHL opportunity. But, I don't know if I'm just totally drinking the Shep Daddy Kool-Aid, because there's been opportunities that other teams could have scooped him up, have not done so. But all things considered, a very capable backup netminder for the Capitals if needed. Now, if Charlie Lindgren is back on Saturday, I don't expect Hunter Shepherd to play on Thursday unless, Logan Thompson tweaked something we didn't know about. But, say if for some reason Charlie Lindgren is out for longer than that, then I think there's the possibility there's no back-to-backs looming. So I think that it will be LT riding it out at least until the weekend. But all things considered, Logan Thompson far exceeding everyone's expectations. It's a contract year. He is playing to get paid big bucks, as he should. If the Capitals don't pay him the big bucks, another team will. A lot of teams out there would, do most anything to have a netminder of Logan Thompson's caliber. All right, so coming up here after the break, trade rumblings. Yes, as we get closer and closer to the trade deadline. Actually, it's still quite a ways away, but in any event, the teams that are really trying to slam the door on the other teams, the teams that are out there trying to plug any holes they have in the lineups, they're trying to get better. Are the Capitals all in on Yanni Gourde? Some Premier insiders think so. I'll break it all down next. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Now, Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Now, it brings everything together in one place. That's what I like about it, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even goals to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. And I was guilty of it. I was paying 2 times for the same streaming service. And Rocket Money said, "Hey, Dan, why don't you save yourself some money and cancel one of those?" And I said, "Thank you very much, Rocket Money. Thank you for saving me some money." So cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Just go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. One more time, rocketmoney.com/lockedon. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The best way that you can help grow this show is to subscribe to Locked On Capitals on YouTube and comment anything down below. All right, in this last segment here, we're going to talk about the Capitals are in a good position. Is there a weakness on this team? And if you had to, give an answer right away, knee-jerk reaction, what is a position that needs to be addressed? I think that most people would say the center position, and more specifically, I would say the third-line center position. Now, Lars Eller has been okay. He is definitely not setting the world ablaze, and, that is not maybe necessarily the first position, I guess, that you could argue about, the third line in general, but definitely the third line central position is one that could definitely be beefed up. We're not living on post-vintage vibes here of Lars Eller from, the 2018 Stanley Cup. We're talking about what have you done for me lately? And Lars Eller is a very capable center, not, slightly diminished, I would say, from what we have seen earlier in his career, or maybe greatly diminished, depending on how you want to look at it. But I think that that third line center position is definitely something that could be addressed. And ultimately why that is fodder for this conversation. As of right now, the Capitals, they are one of the better teams in the National Hockey League. Last I checked, they were tied with only the Winnipeg Jets as the most points in all of the National Hockey League. Let that kind of roll around in your head and just give you the warm fuzzies that being a Capitals fan can be at this point. But so with that said, I think that that the Capitals need to really push all their chips in on making the best team that they possibly can. And this whole thought emanates from Dave Pagnotta from the fourth period, talking about Yanni Gourde, the forward from the Seattle Kraken. As we know, the Capitals might be gearing up to make some moves before the trade deadline on March 7th. And, these guys spitball, Dave Pagnotta, Elliot Friedman, these kind of guys. And where would a guy like Yanni Gourde fit? There's certain things to consider. Well, one of the things is that he's injured right now. So right away, I'm not totally loving it. So if you are not familiar, who is Yanni Gourde? For those that don't know, Gourde was picked up by Seattle from Tampa during the 21 expansion draft. He's got, a pretty impressive track record, including 2 Stanley Cup rings with Tampa. So definitely brings the experience, and ultimately why I was thinking third line center. So he would add experience, but his current 6-year contract, which started in 2018, is coming to an end. So you take a look at it. They would have a guy that would help on paper ostensibly solidify that position. But unfortunately for the Kraken, it's been a tough year, sitting at an 18-23-3 record and seventh place in the Pacific, a full 10 points out of a wild card spot. They are desperate to move out assets to try to get this team back in the winning business. So there have been whispers about Seattle shipping Gourde since, November. And, you start to draw lines. Where could he fit? And with him racking up 16 points in 35 games, he's been a solid contributor, particularly on the PK. Now, those are the things that, need to be addressed, special teams, those kind of things. So where would he fit in, and why would the Capitals ultimately be interested? Well, like I illustrated off the top there, the Caps bringing players like Gourde could really bolster the center depth. We all remember about Lars Eller earlier in the season. Didn't quite solve the problem. Plus, Gourde's versatility means he can play effectively on the wing. So, I'm loving Ethen Frank, Mangiapane, but we know that injuries are looming around most every corner or any quarter or inconsistent play. That a guy like Yanni Gourde, with his experience, his pedigree, his history, could definitely be a big bolster there. So now it's worth noting that Gourde comes with a hefty salary cap of $5.17 million and a no-trade clause covering 23 teams. To top it off, he's currently on the injured reserve due to a lower body injury he sustained on January 4th. So you take a look at it, 5.17, a no trade clause covering 23 teams. I don't know if Dave Pagnotta is privy to if the Capitals are one of the teams that he would not go to. But in any event, it's fodder, something to think about. I definitely think Lars Eller. And, it's almost like you're saying something sacrilegious when you say Lars Eller. Well, he's not quite what we hoped. Some people are like, how dare you? Do you remember what Lars Eller did in 2018? And I'm like, yeah, I know his history. I'm quite aware of it. But what it's about taking this team and making it the most competitive team that you possibly can. Now, you take a look at it, the Capitals, they don't want to settle for anything less than a deep Stanley Cup push or in fact, Stanley Cup victory. We don't want to make it to the last dance to step away before the last dance kicks in. We want to take this team as deep as it can possibly go. And we can do that by plugging holes in the lineup, bolstering this lineup. I think that Yanni Gourde could potentially be one of those guys. He's injured, which I don't love, but, I don't think that the Capitals would sign an injured player right now. And of course, we know that the trade deadline isn't until March, but an intriguing thought. Again, his history speaks for itself. Couple Stanley Cup rings. So you can't take that away from him, but that is the point of the season that we're at right now, is about the Capitals are good right now, but what do we really need to take this team and take it to the next level? I think Yanni Gourde could be a player like that to really address. Like I said, the third line is what really pops out. There's not a lot of other weaknesses, but other things to consider. Nick Dowd, again, I would expect his name to be circulated as well come around trade deadline. Again, don't shoot the messenger. That was just the rumblings last trade deadline that I would assume that not a lot has changed there. And, kicking the tires, teams that are in the hunt, what would that mean for Charlie Lindgren? There's going to be people kicking the tires on the netminders as well, or even Logan Thompson. So all things considered, the Capitals are not the only team. There's 32 teams out there that they all want to make it to the Stanley Cup, and only one can do it. So they're going to do whatever it takes to help bolster their lineup. The Capitals are no different. So I'm not against the idea of Yanni Gourde. I don't necessarily like the injury aspect and necessarily the money, but that is the juncture of the season that we're at, planning already for the postseason. All right, listen, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, your only daily year-round podcast covering the Washington Capitals. And I want to thank all of you that listen on the audio side and watch this on YouTube. You are what makes this show successful. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It is your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.